how does government work? How does government work? What is our government? Why are you part of it? And how does it work across the world? We want to know that. And by the way, I don't know that much technical stuff. So thank you, Kathy, because you bring people here who, in fact, are from different fields. And what better to learn from another field? What's going on? So that's a long commercial for this book I wrote. It's true. Somebody told me, an anthropologist, he discovered a 10,000-year-old tablet from the city of Ur. It said, things are really going to pot. It said, children will not obey their parents. The buses are not running on time. And every man is writing a book. There we are. I wanted to write a book, and I'm curious, there was here a colleague of mine who was on the Supreme Court of Mexico. I saw him again here. There he is, good. And before he was the ambassador. And I wonder if his experience is like mine. What experience is relevant to you? The experience I think that's relevant to you is this. When I started in my Supreme Court job, which was 22 years ago, I could have, of the 70 cases, or 70 to 80 cases we really fully decide in a year, maybe found one or two where I could in honesty say, to decide this case, we better know something about what goes on outside the United States. Today, in response to that same question, I would say 10 to 15%, 7, 10, 15, that's a lot. That's a lot. And what I've written about is what they are. And why do I write what they are? You know, I'm forcing people to read this law. My God, how can you do it? But the reason is simply this. It's in English, I think. The point is this, that this economy, terrorism, civil rights, treaties involving abduction of children. I mean, marriage today crosses boundaries all the time. And a host of other subjects where if I don't know something about what's happening abroad, I can't do my job. Now, that's not about being an ambassador or being a government official. That doesn't come about. I mean, let me give you an example. Maybe one example, and that'll probably be enough for the moment. Maybe one example seems boring. It's in the economic area, not the terrorism area. They're much more interesting, but they take longer to go into. Student, Cornell, from Thailand, on a scholarship. His textbooks, pretty expensive. Same book in English, cheaper in Bangkok. Writes to his parents, send me a few. Well, they sent more than a few. He thought this is a pretty good thing here. He'd be able to sell them to everybody. And the publisher got a little annoyed. So the publisher brought a lawsuit. And there we are, up in our court finally, because whether he can do that or not depends on words in a statute of such obscurity that it took a genius to write them. So I go into my office, and there I have a stack like this of briefs. They're not brief. I don't know why they call them briefs. In any case, we have, I mean, there are briefs from lawyers in Thailand, of course, in Europe, all over the EU, all over the world, in fact, and governments too. I said, you know, this is an interesting case. But I mean, why this? And from why? I find the answer in probably down 2/3 in the pile, where somebody tells us this. He says, your answer in this case, copyright today is not just about books, or about books and music, or about books and music and film. Try buying a car. It's full of software, copyrighted. Try going into a store, anyone you want, labels, and they come up from abroad, most of them copyrighted. And he says, your answer in this case is going to affect $3.2 trillion worth of commerce. I mean, even today, you know, that's a lot of money. So there we are. And I can't answer that question unless I know how copyright works in Europe and in Thailand and what publishers' practices are across the world. And I can give you field after field. And my guess is that El Ministro, they give them a nice title, has a similar circumstance, and you go to your judges. And I said, when you get through reading this, you may be helped You may be helped as follows, slight advertisement, but nonetheless.